This one will be on how to monitor, measure, and promote your end user adoption in Cognos Analytics. We're very excited to bring you this edition. We've heard a lot of really good feedback from the folks who have already seen this presentation, the product that we're going to be demonstrating today. So very excited to bring you this edition of our webinar. By way of introduction, my name is Kevin Emanuel. I'm the Director of Software Solutions here at PMsquare, and I'll be serving as your MC today for this edition of the webinar. I also have my colleague Ryan Dolly on the call. Ryan is our Senior Solutions Architect and also manages our development team here at PMsquare. Ryan's really going to be taking a majority of the time on the presentation and demonstration today and running through all of that. So with that said, I'll go ahead and talk about the quick agenda here before we get started. As far as what we have in store for you today, we're going to do a quick overview of PMsquare. For those of you who may not be familiar with who we are as a company, I'll spend about 2 minutes on that. Give you a quick overview of that, and then we'll talk about some of the overall challenges to user adoption. Not only some of the feedback and things that we've heard from our customers, but also some of the industry trends that we've seen as it relates to user adoption. To kind of put things into context and really explain what has led to PMsquare developing this solution that was demanded by a lot of our customers. From there, we'll do a very brief solution overview of Thrive before we jump into showing you a live demonstration of the tool. At the very end, we'll try to have an interactive Q&A as time permits. However, as you watch the presentation, I encourage you guys to ask all of your questions by putting them in the GoToWebinar question box on the right-hand side of your screen. That way we can capture all of your questions and we'll try to answer them at the very end the best that we can. And if we don't get to all of the questions, we can follow up with a Q&A document as well. So again, I encourage everyone to post your questions in the window, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. With that said, I'll do a quick overview of PMsquare. So for those of you who may not be familiar with who we are as a company, our company is really kind of comprises of two distinct pillars. First and foremost, we are a Gold IBM Business Partner. What that means is that we work with customers to really help you from anything related to IBM, whether that means that you want to procure new software licensing, your ongoing annual support renewal that needs to be transacted, providing any kind of support that you need, and really helping you to navigate your way through the big blue that is IBM. So connecting you with the right resources, bringing the latest and greatest product information to you, so you can really use us in this arena in a way to really get connected better with the IBM products and the personnel. Secondly is our professional services division, and here is where we work with our customers in a variety of different ways, not only just to implement and deploy different technology solutions from IBM, but also provide any kind of ongoing support that you may need, whether that's training, whether that's road mapping and strategy sessions that you may need on a regular basis, or really just to help you guys develop a strategy around what you're doing today and where you'd like to go in the future, and really help you to develop that strategy as you become a more analytics-driven organization. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see some of the awards and accolades that we've received over the years globally for some of the good work that we've done, some of the success stories that we've been able to produce. So we're pretty proud of them. We also are very proud of the fact that we have 3 IBM champions on board, which is a very distinct award that IBM awards to a set group of people globally every year. So very proud of our accomplishments there. And as a whole, that's kind of who we are as a company and some of the things that we've been able to achieve. Next slide, please. All right, that's actually all that I'm going to cover with you guys. I'm going to hand things over to Ryan to really talk about some of the challenges to user adoption and move forward with the demonstration itself. So Ryan, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So, really we kind of, challenges to user adoption is what we've titled this section. It really kind of encompasses the impetus for why we developed the Thrive solution. I'm sure, what we're looking at here is you might call this the business analytics maturity model. But this is a slide that I'm sure we've all seen in one form or other over the years, kind of laying out the path that you take from when you first make an investment in an analytics solution like Cognos, and you start doing things like standard reports. As time goes on, you tend to move into more complicated types of analytics that deliver more value and more competitive advantage, right? So we start doing standard reports, we start moving into kind of self-service BI, maybe we get into automated alerts. But then after that, we take the next step and start moving into things like planning and forecasting with IBM's planning analytics solution, all the way up to prescriptive analytics and AI. So, when we start using kind of the true, enterprise class Watson applications to do our analytics. And this is something that we've all seen, and I'm sure, we've all been told this is what we need to aspire to. You move up the maturity curve, and that's great. But what we've kind of experienced at PMsquare in our history working with clients to try to implement these solutions is that what's left off of this slide is what we kind of call the field of dreams question, right? Which is, there's this assumption that if you build it, they will come. And that's kind of what we've all been operating under, that assumption. Now, the reality is that there's been a lot of building going on, right? There's, according to Gartner in 2017, approximately $18.3 billion were spent on BI or analytics software, which is obviously a huge investment, showing us how important these technologies are. But Gartner also reports that on average, an organization can expect about a 32% user adoption for their BI or analytics solution. So there's a lot of building going on, but the question is, are we really reaching the full expanse of the potential audience for these solutions? And what we find, both Gartner's research here and also our anecdotal experience as a consulting partner, is that the answer is no, right? There's still a lot of work to be done in figuring out how to kind of supercharge the adoption of a solution like IBM Cognos. So what stands in the way of doing something like that? There's a lot of things that we've run into over the years that we kind of try to boil down here to what are the keys that stand in the way. So a big one would be lack of support for newer struggling users. A lot of times you roll out Cognos to a new part of the company, or you have some new people come on board, new hires, and you may or may not have a good way to support them as they try to kind of wrap their heads around Cognos and take advantage of the power that is inherent in the tool, right? Running through things like stale or outdated enterprise data. Of course, an immature self-service culture is one we run into a lot. We were talking to a client yesterday, and he kind of said, well, the number one thing my users say is it's just too hard, I don't get it. And we kind of talked back and forth, and what it really boils down to is if the user's telling you, it's just too hard, I don't get Cognos, a lot of times it's kind of a combination of what you're seeing on the screen is what they're really experiencing. And so we wanted to come up with a way, and we realized that customers were having these problems, but that they were having a hard time identifying them and then quantifying where they stand today and where they want to get to in the future as far as user adoption is concerned, and as far as addressing problems like poor performance or an inability to transition on from legacy features. There's some key questions that you could be asking that would help you overcome these challenges. Things like, how are my key adoption metrics changing over time? Or even taking a step back, right, and saying, well, what are my key adoption metrics? And how are they changing over time? Which users are at risk of low satisfaction with Cognos? You may not always know. You may think things are going okay, but you've got users in certain areas, and I can tell lots of stories about this where you find out 2-3 months after the fact that, oh yeah, we're not really using Cognos anymore. We bought a new tool, or we upgraded our source system, and that came with some built-in query capability, and now we're using that, right? And not being able to identify when that might happen ahead of time. How can I determine who gets it, who's getting value out of something like Cognos Analytics versus who needs support? And most importantly, really kind of what actions can I take today to improve adoption in an actionable way? What can I do this afternoon that will help ensure that people are getting the value out of Cognos that we expect based on our investment in it. And finally, how will I know if I succeed? This is a quote that we have on here from Bill Gates that we think is pretty interesting. If you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. And really, the way most of our clients today are answering these questions you see on the screen, and really most of the Cognos community, as far as we can tell, it's just by gut feel, right? Who are my power users? Well, it's the people who are calling me a lot to say good things about Cognos. And who are my users who need a lot of help? Well, it's the people who are calling me a lot to say bad things about Cognos, right? But there's a whole world of user activity that's going on that, unless you have some insight into the actual data that Cognos provides about what users are doing, you're going to miss. And that's what Thrive is really all about. So Thrive is an IBM certified solution. It's part of IBM's software catalog of kind of Cognos extensions. That's going to take your audit data, that exists in your Cognos audit database, ingest it, and then transform it into measurable insights about your Cognos user community that will allow you to take action to ensure that adoption is high and that people are satisfied with what you're delivering, and to head off problems in those areas before they develop into widespread dissatisfaction with Cognos. What is Thrive? And we'll take a look at it in depth. I'm going to do a demo, so I won't spend a ton of time on this slide, but it's we're going to define some user adoption metrics for you and kind of provide those by a number of visualizations in a kind of an intuitive manner, and allow you to track those metrics over time. Provide you the ability to do proactive environment cleanup. So pinpoint and resolve issues in your Cognos environment kind of as they occur, rather than waiting for your users to start reaching out to you to tell you that they're experiencing a lot of errors or have a poorly performing report or something like that. And then give you the ability to monitor and measure utilization over time so that you have a clear picture of kind of where you come from as far as your adoption and utilization for Cognos is concerned, and where you're headed, and make sure that you track your progress to reach your goals in these areas. So with that said, I won't belabor the slide deck any further. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into a demo of Thrive.
Hey, Ryan, before you get going with the demo itself, I'd like to actually put up a poll just to get a feel for how people are thinking about some of these topics that we're discussing here. So I'd like to invite everyone to take a couple of seconds and then just respond to that one question. Do you feel like your organization has strong user adoption at this point? Please enter your responses now.
Kevin, while we're waiting for that to come in, we did have one question. It was, is Thrive available on cloud? The answer to that question is yes. Thrive is available on cloud. In fact, Thrive is a cloud solution, so that's its only deployment model right now. But yeah, it's available on cloud, and as a consequence, very easy to kind of install and set up.
Great, and here we have the results from the poll that we just posted. So thanks everyone for posting your results there. Seems like everyone, just about more than half the people, are in the sort of category. So it'd be interesting to see the next poll at the end of the demo. So Ryan, back to you.
Sure, thanks, Kevin. So as I just alluded to, Thrive is a cloud-based application. What we're looking at right here is the Thrive login screen. So I can come here and just punch in my login credentials, and that will take me into the Thrive application. Now, by default, when you come into Thrive, you're taken to what we call our metrics view or metrics page, and this is going to be your high-level trends and comparisons for your Cognos environment, as well as things, important adoption metrics and the top drivers for those metrics. Now, there's some configuration you can do of this screen. Predominantly, if you look at the top here, of course, you're always going to want to be doing time series analysis, so we wanted to make that really easy to have access to. So if you can imagine, for example, I'm kind of maybe I'm the director of the department that oversees BI, and I want to, we recently rolled out Cognos Analytics, and I want to come in and see what happened in the month of May as far as our key metrics are concerned, because we want to make sure we get the most out of our investment in the new version, right? So right off the bat, I can come in here, click on this date range. Now I can choose a custom date range if I want, or I can use one of these kind of time period shortcuts. So I'll just choose last month, and you'll notice it is going to automatically filter to show me data from the first day of May to the last day of May. So right now I'm just looking at that kind of time period, and I can see, as far as the analytics piece is concerned, what are the feature utilizations for Cognos Analytics, and how did those change versus the previous month? So for example, we had 635 views of dashboards, which is an increase of 1.1% versus the month of April. And going down, all of the analytics features, I can see, for example, that we actually had a decrease in the number of data sets that were created in the Cognos environment of 11.8%. We also, below that, are going to nest just your overall bread and butter metrics. So how many people are logging in? How many times did those people log in? How long did they wait, for example, when they executed a report in the interactive mode? In this case, the average wait was 208 seconds, which was a decrease of 26% versus the previous month. So, a lot of positive growth there. Those are high-level metrics. And then we have, I might come over here and take a look at, on this side of the screen, we have what we call our leaderboards. So that's going to be kind of key metrics that affect user adoption, as well as a top 5, showing you what are the drivers of those key metrics. For example, what are my top 5 longest running reports? I can see them very clearly here. What are the 5 reports that fail the most when executed, and how many times did those reports fail over the course of the month? I can also see here, I might take a look at, as this executive, one thing I'm going to be pretty interested in, I think, is this at-risk user score. So this is where we start to get into some of the more advanced things that we're doing in Thrive. We'll ingest your audit data, and then we're going to do some statistical analysis on the back end to categorize your users and let you know how at risk any individual user is for dissatisfaction with Cognos. Someone who might say, I don't want to use Cognos anymore, I'm going to go use Tableau or Power BI or something like that, right? So as an executive, I might come in here, maybe we agree, we're going to address anytime someone gets to, say, an at-risk score of 4, we're going to cut it off there. We don't want anyone to get to 5 or above. And this is out of a 0 through 6 scale, I should mention here. So we don't want anybody to get to 5 or above. And I can see right away that Brody Batista here has hit 5 on an at-risk score. So we're going to want to take some action in figuring out what is going on. Why did Brody hit a 5, and what can we do to lower that at-risk score? So as the executive, I might pick up the phone then and or walk down the office and talk to the head of the BI team and bring this up and say, hey, head of the BI team, what's going on? Why did Brody hit a 5, and what can we do about it? Right away, I can just click on this graph, and it's going to bring up some filter information for Brody. So I can see exactly what it is that Brody's doing. I can see how many reports did he run in the month of May, or rather, how many executions did he have? What features was it that he was using? What actual reports was it that he was executing, along with a trend line of how often he ran the report. And right off the bat, looking at Brody's information here, I can see probably a pretty big factor driving Brody's potential dissatisfaction with Cognos would be this 25% failure rate, right? And now I know that virtually like a quarter of the time, Brody attempted to do something in Cognos. It resulted in some kind of error state. And I can see, well, which reports was it that Brody was running that resulted in an error most frequently? So we might want to take a look then at this yearly business unit forecast and see what was going on with that report. I can click on it here, and now it's going to drill through to a detailed view for the yearly business unit forecast report, showing me a number of kind of similar types of metrics that we had on the detailed view for Brody as an individual. Total executions, batch versus interactive execution. So, literally which service is it running on when the report server is processing the queries for this report? How long did it take to run? When was it last run? We can see it has a pretty high failure rate, 17.39%. And then we can start digging into specific executions that failed. So here I've got a list of every execution of that report. I can start doing some simple filtering here. You'll see in a lot of locations in Thrive, you have the ability in the column headers to just do like a type, kind of a type filter. So I start typing Brody's name. It goes ahead and filters for just his executions. And I can see, which reports, which executions that Brody made that failed, as well as how long did that particular execution take. So in this case, the report ran for a really long time and failed in the batch mode. So this was probably, Brody scheduled the report to be delivered to his inbox at a certain time, and it never showed up, would be my guess as to what happened here. Right? The report processed for a long time and ended in a failure state. It never showed up in Brody's inbox at all. Now, if I want to do some analysis of what errors are occurring in my environment, we've kind of seen by looking at the fact that Brody hit this 5 on the at-risk user score, that we've got maybe have a problem with some stability in the environment that we might want to address. I can see right here, well, what are my top errors? So as the manager of that BI team, this is the type of thing that I'm going to want to be tracking over time, and I'm always going to want to know what errors are occurring in my environment most frequently, and what can I do about them? I can see here a number of different options, or the top 5 errors that are occurring. For example, is XQE plan error. So that's going to be, anytime you see XQE plan, that's the dynamic query mode, and it's happening before it sends the query off. When it's trying to build the query, something's happening where it's not able to finish that process and send the query off to the underlying database, right? I can see that right here very easily, but I can also, if I want to click on a particular error, it's going to bring up an error view, showing the trend of that error over time, which servers, application servers in my environment were experiencing that error. So a lot of times you might come in here and you're going to see, hey, it's only happening on Cognos Server 2 here, for example, and you know that you have a configuration problem with that server that you may need to address. I can see the top users who've received this error, along with every event where this error popped up. So which report was it, who was running it, when did that occur, and what was the actual error message. Of course, I can filter for all of these. But interestingly, I can also have this search IBM support button. So if I click on that, it's going to bring me to IBM support page, pop in the error code, and return a list of results for what that error might be. Right? So now I can start to dig into this and say, okay, I know it occurred on these reports. I know these people received the error. Here are some potential causes for the error. And then once I've solved the problem, I have a list of people who I can reach out to say, hey, I know that you experienced this error recently. We wanted to let you know that we've gone ahead and taken the steps to resolve it. You shouldn't see it again in the future. Now, I would normally say, when I would tell you, because I've been the guy who's writing those emails a number of times over the course of my career, right? I would normally end that email by saying, please let us know if it occurs again, right? The nice thing with Thrive is that you're going to know when it occurs again, right? Because Thrive is going to be surfacing that information for you in a way that you don't have to wait for the phone calls to start coming in, on the 6th business day of the month when finance needs these reports to close the books, and suddenly they're not able to execute those reports, you're going to be able to know that that's happening, before you start getting all the phone calls and the emails letting you know that something's wrong, by coming in and just monitoring the environment through Thrive. Now, there's a couple other interesting things here. Right now, we're looking at everybody in the environment, but a lot of times, one of the big requests that we get from people is, I want to be able to see not everything that's happening in my environment, but specific groups of people. And groups of people who are maybe not captured by an Active Directory role or a group or role within Cognos Security, but that are based on the business relationships between them. So imagine you're rolling out Cognos to there's a new project that's kind of a cross-functional project that's going to involve some people in finance and some people in supply chain, say. You don't have an Active Directory role or a role in Cognos that's going to encapsulate those people, but in Thrive, you can easily group them together and see what it is that they're doing in Cognos by interacting with our group editor here. So first of all, if I can go ahead and just apply a custom group. In this case, say I just rolled out Cognos Analytics to a specific group of people. Maybe we upgraded last month and we're not rolling out the new features to everyone because we want to pilot them first. I can create a Cognos Analytics pilot group, and now you can see here I've filtered it to just the members of that group. All of our metrics here have updated to reflect just what those people are doing. And I can, kind of switch between groups on the fly, but I can also control who is in an individual group by coming into the group manager. I can edit an existing group or create a new one. So let's imagine we want to create a new group for that project, and that, that project has a very unique name, like really cool project. And I want to then here's all the people who are available within Cognos, and I can go ahead and just start adding them to this group. So just randomly add a couple of them here. I can also do a search. So say, that our Brody, who's at risk for leaving Cognos, is on this project as well. I can just do a search for him here. I know, the number of users you may have in Cognos could be a couple dozen, or it could be hundreds or even thousands. So giving you the ability to just search for them like that and add them to a custom group. Then at the end of that, I just go ahead and click confirm. And you can see my really cool project is added to the group list. I can see who's in the really cool project. If I want to remove an individual, I simply click an X. If I want to add people, I can come in here. Again, I see my whole list of users. Just go ahead and randomly throw a couple more in here. When I'm done, I X out, and then up here I go down and choose really cool project. And now you'll see it's, again, sliced all of our metrics and everything to show me just the people in that really cool project group. So this is the type of thing, that example I gave of when you're using, when you've rolled out the new features of Cognos Analytics and you're using them as a pilot group is something that we've seen people do a lot with this feature. But just anytime you have a cross-functional group within Cognos, very easy to track them using this aspect of Thrive. Now, in the example we were talking through earlier, as the BI team lead, when I'm coming through and I'm trying to figure out why did Brody Batista hit this 5 status in the at-risk score. Of course, I can look at these high metrics and visualizations, but maybe, I just want to see kind of some bread and butter list style reporting for what's going on in Cognos. And I can easily get to that by looking at any of these leaderboards and clicking, say, failing reports, for example. If I click this See All, it's going to take us from the metrics page to the report page. And on the report page, it's showing me strictly it's showing me data for each report in the environment, again, sliced by the time range and the custom group that we've chosen. And it went ahead and filtered it by failures. So for this really cool project group, You know, the report that filled the most for them was this yearly business unit report. Again, it's Brody Batista, right, our famous user here. Now on here, I can go ahead and do some filtering. So say I want to just look at the reports that are based on a certain package or data module. I can start typing ahead here. You'll see it filters very quickly using the type ahead to show me both the Go Sales Query package and the Sales Data module. I can just continue typing. Now I'm looking at just the reports that are built off of that data module in question. I can go ahead then and, you know, if I want to switch to a different group or go back to all users, I simply go ahead and do that. You'll notice my type ahead stayed. That type ahead filter stayed there as I switched groups. It'll do the same thing if I switch date ranges. And here it's just very easy to see things like, you know, which reports in my environment have the highest failure percentage. I can see some of them are up to 50, but these are seldom used reports. However, you know, if I get down here, I've got a report, this quarterly executive report. Let's just expand this a bit. Quarterly executive dashboard is built on the Sales Data Mart, had 42 executions in the month of May, failed 14% of the time. And the person who uses it the most is Kevin Middleton. So, you know, right off the bat, I know my environment, maybe I know who Kevin is, and maybe I know that if Kevin's using a report and it's failing a lot, that's going to be a problem for us because Kevin is an influential or important user. We also surface here some kind of just high-level performance metrics with trend lines. For total executions, you know, the average runtime in the interactive and batch mode, total failures for the environment, similar to what we had on the front page, or on the metrics page, but just something to give you some context for what you're seeing here in this list view. Now, a lot of times one thing people, you know, for those of you who are BI administrators or have been working in Cognos for a while, you know, one of the #1 questions that you're going to get is, can I export this data to Excel, right? That's, people always ask that when you're doing something in Cognos. And the answer in Cognos is, of course, yes, and the answer in Thrive is also yes. So if I click down here, you'll see, and this appears anytime there's a list in Thrive, you'll have this option, download to Excel. I simply click that button. Now I've got this Excel file available. When I click on that, of course, it opens on my other page, but I'll just, on my other monitor, but I'll just go ahead and drag that over, and you can see here's that data available in an Excel format. So you'll always, you know, if there's some type of slice and dice that you want to do in Excel that you can't do in Thrive, you'll always have the ability to export the data and do that slice and dice there as necessary. As that BI team lead, of course, I don't want to just see a detailed view of reports. I want to see a detailed view of users. So I have access to that in what we call the adoption page. Very similar to the report page. However, one thing that I do like to highlight here is this top 5 and bottom 5% change in users. So this is something that I think is very interesting. It's always going to show you the 5 users who have increased their usage of Cognos the most and the 5 who have decreased it the most in any date range or group that I'm looking at. So I can see right away that, you know, Stephen Barry has a huge increase in Cognos utilization, 2,300%. So he's obviously, he must be loving it, right? He discovered how cool dashboards are and has been going ham using dashboards. Conversely, Zane Gallagher, you know, 57% drop off. So this might be someone, you know, if I see a name on here, Zane Gallagher, Ezra Knight, who is someone important that I want to, you know, that we maybe is a power user and has got 57% drop off in Cognos utilization month over month. That's a little concerning, and that's someone that we might want to proactively reach out to and figure out what's going on with Cognos and why did their usage drop. Now, all of this that we've been looking at so far is mostly kind of reactive, right? You can come in and, of course, you can go to the metrics view and see your top error messages or longest running reports or at-risk users changing over the course of the day, because we are doing kind of a near real-time data capture to get this information and present it to you. But, you know, as that BI team lead, oftentimes you're going to want to be more proactive than that. And so one of the things, and kind of the final and really most exciting feature that we have to share today of Thrive is this, what we call the issues feature. And as that BI team lead, you want to be more proactive, and you and your Cognos admin and your developers are going to want to stay on top of these things, these types of adoption issues that we've discussed, before your users are calling you to tell you that they're having a problem, sometimes before they even know that the problem exists. And the way that Thrive is going to allow you to do that is on the issues page here. So the issues page, what the issues page is doing is we're going to comb through your audit database, and we're going to surface adoption, performance, or stability related problems in your Cognos environment proactively on a series of cards. That's what we call these. So each card has a different color, and the color represents what type of problem it is. For example, adoption issues. If I click on this adoption button on the side here, it's going to filter all the cards for just the adoption cards and show me that there are two types of adoption issues that it's uncovering: inactive users and at-risk users, like Brody Batista from our example. So if I click on this, you can see it's going to show me those at-risk users, as going to give me information, when did they last log in, when was this issue reported. For example, Urim here went into an at-risk status on May 10th, right? Now this is somebody that I may want to reach out to, see what's going on, or maybe I know, I already know what's going on, and so we want to, we just kind of want to clear this card out. I can go ahead and do that by clicking this resolve button, and it's going to say, okay, this user went into an at-risk status. I'm going to tell the Thrive system that I've taken that necessary steps to address it, and I want to clear this card out. I can say, just clear it out, and if the user goes into an at-risk status again, I want it to reappear. Or I can tell it, for the rest of the month of June, I don't want this card to come back. Now you'll notice it disappeared from my view here. I can also bulk clear these out. I could select all of them and choose resolve for the month of June. And you'll notice now all my at-risk issues have gone away. I can always see what issues I've cleared out by clicking on the history button, and it will show me all of those issues that we were discussing earlier. And if I clear out a couple of them and go back to this view, you'll notice that a number of the at-risk issues, I cleared out 2 of them, now they've reappeared here. Now this is something you don't have to, you're not going in and setting these users in an at-risk status. We are ingesting your audit data, profiling your audit data, determining who is in an at-risk status, and then creating an issue card for those users so that you can come in here weekly or even on a daily basis and see what is going on in your Cognos environment that might affect adoption, which users have entered an at-risk status, and take an action to do something about it. Similarly, we have our performance. So these are going to be just reports that are running a long time. And then again, with errors. So where this really comes into handy, for example, would be, I'm a Thrive customer. It's day 6. The financial close process is going on. It's the critical day where the financial analysts are going to be checking the numbers, making sure they're right so that we can close the books on the previous month. And suddenly, we start having some instability in the Cognos environment, and we're getting, our financial analysts are getting errors. Well, those errors, Thrive is going to see those errors happening in near real time and start generating these stability cards for you to look at. So you're going to see right away in here, a card's going to pop up. It's going to tell you what the name of the error is, how many reports and users were affected. If I click on it, it's going to bring me into that error detail view that we were discussing earlier, and allow me to easily see who it's affecting, what servers it's affecting, the specific events that were taking place, and go directly to IBM's support site to see what documentation does IBM have for this error code, and what might I be able to do to solve it. And that's before the first financial analyst or manager picks up the phone and calls you to say, hey, we're having some problems with the month-end reports. You can really take advantage of Thrive to head off that type of issue, whether it's a stability problem with your Cognos environment where people are getting errors, whether it's a poorly performing report, or whether it is users who have dropped off in their utilization of Cognos and they haven't logged in a long time, or users who are still using Cognos, but based on our analysis of their statistics, their usage of Cognos is waning or at risk of waning, and maybe they need some help. You need to reach out to them and give them some training to get them skilled up so they can take advantage of it. All of that proactively surfaced for you in this issues feature, so that you can stay on top of it as a BI department and ensure that your users are always satisfied with what they are getting out of your investment in Cognos, and allow you to grow that investment over time. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts overview of what we have in Thrive right now. I would say, as far as what the roadmap contains, we're doing a very active and agile development cycle with this product, and it's really driven by customer requests, right? So as our clients identify new needs in the software, we're rolling them out very quickly. For example, we've already got a couple other, right now we have, I think 5 issues that we will surface by analyzing your data, but we've already got a couple others kind of spec'd out that we're going to be rolling out in the kind of nearish future. For example, a report that, reports that don't perform poorly overall, but have shown significant degradation in their performance over time, to where maybe they're still running relatively quickly, not poorly enough or slowly enough to be a poorly performing report, but they're headed in that direction. Proactively letting you know that here, right? Or packages or data modules that have entered the same status. So that type of thing, we're continuously delivering new features for Thrive, and are always looking for input from our clients or from anybody on the call today. If there's something that you think would be really cool to see in here, reach out to us, and we will be sure to incorporate it or to put it onto the list of features for incorporation into the product. So that's the end of our demonstration. I'll do a little bit, a couple other slides here to cover, and then we will answer any questions. Certainly, I see we've had some questions come into the chat. After having seen the product, if you have any questions or suggestions, please put them into the chat now, and we'll be getting to them in just a couple of minutes. I won't talk too much about this. One of the things that we do offer is a kind of a Thrive adoption jumpstart. So this is a project. A lot of times we do it in conjunction with Cognos Analytics upgrades, but other times we do it independently, where one of our clients will come on site, we'll install and configure Thrive, we'll do an analysis of your historic data. So one thing to understand about Thrive that's important to know is that Thrive doesn't start collecting data at the point where we turn it on, right? It's going to pull in your historic data from your audit database and do an analysis of everything that's happened in your audit database up to the moment it was installed, and then collect data going forward as your Cognos environment evolves. So very useful, especially if you're going from Cognos 10 to Cognos Analytics, to capture that data before you make the jump, because a lot of times customers they won't carry their audit database forward, and so they have no way to quantify what changed when we upgraded to Cognos Analytics. This Thrive Adoption Jumpstart project is a great opportunity for you to get that value. We'll create a personalized adoption plan, so help you figure out what users to target for enablement, the top reports to target for performance improvement, what issues may be affecting your environment, and what are your best opportunities to utilize Cognos Analytics features. And then we will have kind of quarterly follow-up calls to help you, to answer any questions you have, to go over your Thrive metrics, see what has improved, what still needs improvement, help you adjust your plan as time evolves. We expect always at PMsquare, we're big on coming up with plans, but being flexible and being able to adjust to new realities as they evolve in your business. So this is a project, it's really a one-week thing. It's not necessary to start using Thrive, but it's something we offer alongside Thrive for those of you who may want to pair it with an upgrade or with a big push to increase user adoption for Cognos. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to my colleague Kevin to kind of do a wrap up and MC our Q&A session.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ryan. If you could advance to the next slide there, thanks for the demo there and the presentation. So a couple of things I wanted to kind of mention to everyone in terms of kind of call to action and what to do next. And given the fact that there was, I'd say, over about 85% of people who either thought they don't have user adoption at their organization or they kind of sort of have user adoption, I wanted to kind of show the next steps and what we encourage you to do from this point. So I encourage all of you, if there's interest, to reach out to your PMsquare representatives, whether that's myself or some of the other members of my team. And from there, we can kind of talk a little bit more detail about the product, talk about licensing and pricing options that are available. Going to advance to the next bullet there. Thanks, Ryan. We can discuss the specific pricing and licensing options with you, help you to kind of take the next steps in installing and start using Thrive, which will kind of lead to you being able to expand your analytics agenda within the organization through the various ways that Ryan mentioned earlier. And last but not least, to start giving your colleagues and coworkers high fives for becoming a more analytics-driven organization. So with that said, before we jump into Q&A, I wanted to also discuss a couple different ways that you guys can remain engaged with PMsquare. If you've not subscribed to our newsletter, the PMsquare Journal, I highly encourage you to sign up for that. This is where, on a monthly basis, we bring you some of the latest and greatest news, some of the market trends, some of the tips and tricks from our consultants working with various clients, or even just a simple case study or a success story of a particular problem or issue that they were able to resolve for other clients. We always try to bring those types of information to our clients. So encourage you to sign up for our PMsquare Journal. We do have our YouTube channel as well, where this and all the rest of the webinars and some of the other sessions that we have are always posted. And lastly, also our website blog on our website, where we also have a series of articles and some of these kind of interactions posted there for your consumption there as well. And the last thing before we get into Q&A, which is something very exciting, I wanted to remind everyone about our annual Business Analytics Conference that we host in Chicago every year. This year, the conference is being held on August 8th and 9th. And the conference has become larger and larger every year. It's being very well adopted. And this is where we bring, over a 2-day period, some of the latest technology trends to you. We provide a series of workshops, hands-on training. We have some of the executives from IBM that come in and talk about, roadmaps and things like that. So it's a great way to really, get an understanding of where IBM is going with these products, what the demonstrations are, get some hands-on training, and also have the opportunity to talk to our consulting team on any particular issues that you may have. Lastly, before we go into Q&A, we do have one more poll that I'd like to post on here as well. So let's go ahead and launch that. So are you interested in learning more about Thrive and take your user adoption from a no or a sort of to yes? So if you could take a quick second and post your answers there, we would appreciate it. And while that's happening, Ryan, I'm going to give you a couple of questions that have been posted in the chat box here.
Sure.
The first question that we have is, can Thrive connect to data sources other than Cognos?
Oh, Yeah, that's a good question. So right now it is just Cognos, but we do envision it expanding to other applications that have audit information. So the first logical step would be to expand Thrive to look at, say, Tableau's audit information, or get some audit information on Power BI or other analytics applications. And then from there, we could see it expanding into non-analytics applications too. So the answer is today, just Cognos, but in the medium-term roadmap would be to start roping in other applications, including other popular analytics applications.
Okay, fantastic. Next question we have on here is, does Thrive work on Cognos 10 or Cognos 11?
Both. So in either case, Thrive is going to be able to take your audit information and do the types of things that you saw in today's demonstration.
Fantastic. A couple more questions here that it seems like my colleagues already responded to via the chat box. I'll go ahead and just ask them anyway in case other people may have the same questions. The first question was, so is this a Cognos dashboard running on the audit database, or are you building on the basic audit package with your own metrics?
So it's a full-blown custom web application is what it is. So it is extracting the data from the audit database, but it's doing that via a local application that we call Thrive Sync. And then it is taking that information and passing it off to a cloud-based NoSQL database that we are running, where all of the kind of heavy application or heavy calculation type stuff is being done. So it's not a Cognos dashboard. It's a full-blown custom web application. And while it is extracting the data from the audit database, it is not, when you do things like do time filters or other calculations within Thrive, it's not hitting your audit database. It's hitting the data that was extracted into our NoSQL data store.
All right, fantastic. Is there any other questions here? Yeah, it seems like the rest of the questions have already been answered by my colleagues. So that wraps up our webinar. Thanks again, Ryan, for the demonstration, and thanks to everyone on the call for joining us for the series. I do invite you to join our future webinars in the coming months. And again, look forward to seeing all of you at our upcoming Business Analytics Conference in August. Thanks again, and have a good one. Good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.